Hello and welcome to Mental Health Monday. So happy to see you guys here with us. Thank you for tuning in and joining us this evening for another episode of Mental Health Mondays. Always good to see you, Dr. Whyte.
Good to see you as well, sis.
Good to see you back here because you had to do an early exit last week.
Absolutely.
So I know
My,
everyone is happy that you are back because we love to
absolutely.
hear all the positive and deep things that you have to share on mental health. And so we're going to get to hear some more of that this evening. I saw that Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 through 23 was the first person to say hi to us this evening. And so good evening to you. And Clint, you were a very close second, but we are so glad to see you here as well. Dr.
Absolutely.
Dr. Whyte off air said that some people are giving Clint a run for his money.
Seriously. That's right, Clint. Just, show them how it's done, though, Clint. We know you're just letting other people come in once in a while, but we know you're going to dominate the space.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, now that we changed the date of the convocation, maybe Clint can come
Oh,
this time.
yeah. Clint, can you come October? We'll wait to see what he has to say.
Yeah.
Hopefully, that'll be nice. We would. I thought he said glad to be there, but he said glad to be here.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, he's laughing. I don't know what that laughing face is. If that's a you're coming or, or it's still a I don't know. But
It's what October. What's the date you got?
it's October 30th through November 2nd.
Nice, yeah. So there
So
you have it, Clint. Put it in your calendar.
yeah, put it in your calendar. We would love to see you. But yeah, please, everyone, welcome again and let us know where you are viewing from because we want to reach out to you and say a welcome to whatever area you're watching from. We are international. We're an international church, so this is an international program because we are online and we want to know who is watching and want to send you a welcome. But we have enjoyed the last 2 weeks talking about the book, The Disease to Please. It truly has, I mean, every program is just, been getting better and better as you guys are really, your comments also are really making and your questions too are making the program just work and go together. It's not just Dr. Whyte and I, it's what you're having to share as well. And you're asking some really, really good questions. And so we are thankful for you being here and being part of the program. Let's see what Clint has to say. He says, when it's in Texas, we can come. We can't make that trip, sadly. All right, Clint. Okay. Yeah. All right. So we'll have to see. We will have to anywhere in Texas. I don't know, Clint. Texas is a big state, but if it's anywhere in Texas, then you can come. So we would love to have you there. But we also have London, UK watching. So welcome. I'm sure it is early morning there. It has to be in the UK. So we are just thankful that you are here watching with us. And remember, you guys are a part of this program. So your questions and your comments make Mental Health Monday work and do its thing. So we are going to jump in and to follow up. Are you near Dallas, Clint? Okay, if you're near Dallas, I'm going to throw that city into and to the planners and those who plan the convocation for the next one and say, let's consider Dallas. They're going to pray about it. So we'll see. We'll see. Okay, let's jump right in because there's always lots to talk about when it comes to the disease to please.
Yeah.
Even the name of that is just so powerful. The name of the book is so powerful because so many people think that it's not a problem at all. Because even though they want to make it, deep down they know that it is, and like we've talked about, that the foundation of being a people pleaser is fear. So just try to we're just going to go over some of the things that we've shared over the last couple of weeks. Is that there's nothing wrong with, of course, doing nice things for people. But when there's no boundaries and your motivation is out of fear, that's when it becomes an issue because you're not really doing it and coming from that proper space. And I think that's where people they just get used to doing it. And even though fear is the base, they still just, they get a lot of accolades because they're just like, oh yeah, Ricardo, he's so nice. He'll do anything. Every time everybody asks him for anything, we can just, I'm just saying, I'm just giving you as an example, Dr. White. And so it's like they know that people pleasers know that it's coming from fear and they have some faulty thought processes, but they also enjoy all the praise and accolades that they do get from being that person as well.
No, seriously. I thought one of the most interesting things is the way that such a good thing can set you up for burnout. Like at the crux of burnout is, hey, I want to be this wonderful person. Hey, I want to be nice to everyone. Like
Mhm.
just a simple thing like that can set you up for so much overwhelm
Right.
because you start to realize anybody that touches any significant number of people, you cannot please everyone. You
Mhm.
cannot please everyone.
Mhm.
And if your happiness is tied to pleasing someone, you're almost guaranteed misery and suffering
Mhm.
because people will be so creative with why they're not pleased with you.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's a very, very important discussion.
Yes, no, it is. One of the points that the book brings out is the connection between stress and people pleasing. I'm not sure if we covered that last week, but I don't think we did. Um, that the book, The Disease to Please, it highlights that the constant need to please triggers chronic stress, anxiety, and even physical health problems like fatigue and headaches. That means that, if it can trigger that type of physical health issues, it's definitely coming from a place of fear. Because to trigger that much stress and to get a headache from it, I mean, they are so afraid that if they don't do it, the person's not going to like them. That's some serious stress.
Well, I think it's often easy for us to think that our thoughts don't have a physical manifestation when
Mm,
in fact they do. I mean, you can literally get skin breakouts from your
yes.
thought process.
Yes.
So, and they've even talked about people who have like a type A personality
Hmm.
having a stronger correlation, a stronger relationship with cardiac illness.
Mm.
So your thoughts are very relevant.
Oh, yes.
And
Very
yeah,
relevant.
it's really interesting.
Yes. And again, you know, being in that space of feeling like you have to say yes because this is the only way people like me is if I say yes and do things for them without putting, even if it's harmful to, even if it's harmful, excuse me, to you as a person, you're still afraid to say no because this is what defines you. This is where your self-esteem is what you do for other people, and being too afraid to say no. And that's coming from a place of fear. And that's not healthy. In the book, she also talks about having distorted thinking. And that is one distortion is that people only like me. I'm not good enough just on my own. My personality alone, me by myself, they're not going to like me. They only like me because I serve them and I do these things, all these different things for them. And even last week, we talked about in the church community that definitely, that thinking of course, we've talked about how, of course, Jesus did all of these things. And as Christians, we are to be kind and do what we can for other people. But even in Christianity, there's boundaries. Even in Christianity, we have to also pour into ourselves and take care of ourselves so we can show up and be the best Christian to other people, be the best wife, be the best husband, be the best mother, be the best father. We have to pour into ourselves and take care of ourselves as well. And with Christians, we can tend to think to do the things that I just said, we will sometimes think, oh, you're being selfish. You're not being Christ-like. When in reality, taking care of yourself is not being selfish. But we
Well,
can tend to think that it is in the Christian world.
well, let me ask you this. Do you think Christ was a people pleaser?
No. No, I don't think he was a people pleaser. He did many kind things and acts of kindness. But every program we've mentioned this, Jesus had to go rest for a while, take a break and pour into himself. And so he had to just put down a boundary. So if you're able to set boundaries, you're not a people pleaser.
Well, and so I think Christ's secret was who it was he made the priority to please. His priority was to
Just to
please
please
his
the
father.
Father, right? Yes.
And I think the significance of that is that too often we do not rely on our devotional life to tell us what should be our next step and what should be our steps. And we'll say, well, hey man, you should be like Christ. Christ was very married to his devotional life because he understood the ultimate person he's trying to please is God.
Right.
Christ told the family, told Lazarus's family,
Mhm.
no, I can't come yet. I can't come yet. Now, if he was about people pleasing, he would have been there in an instant.
Right.
But he had to make God his priority so
Mm.
that he could, and then what you see is if we align with God, that's when we can please people on a level that wasn't even imaginable.
Mhm.
Because here he was able to do the miracle. If you're not familiar with the story of Jesus raising Lazarus, Jesus raises Lazarus after he's dead for 4 days, but
Mhm.
he had to literally ignore the people that were summoning him immediately. He had to be like, no, wait.
Right now. They wanted him to come right now.
Martha and
Yeah.
Mary were very displeased, but he could have that kind of confidence because of his devotional life. And so I
Mhm.
would just say who are for Christians who are trying to be like Christ, if you're trying to be like Christ, be sure you're modeling Christ.
Right.
And one of the things Christ did was he made pleasing God his priority.
Mhm.
Um, and that was how he was able to have a truly impactful ministry.
Mhm. Mhm. We've been talking about the disease to please, being a people pleaser for now this is the third week that we've been talking about it. But something that she brings out in the book is she says, you can practicing assertiveness using I statements to express your feelings and needs without blaming others. For example, I feel overwhelmed when I have too many commitments. Just, you know, letting someone know exactly how you are feeling so that they can understand where you are coming from. But for a people pleaser, you have to practice to become trained in that and being more assertive because they're always just like people pleasers can be, always like yes, with not even thinking or considering what it is that the person is asking, or if it's even, do you have the mental space to be able to do that right now? Like they don't even consider that a lot of times. So just clearly saying, I feel overwhelmed when I have too many commitments. And I would love to do what you're doing, but I'm already committed in these areas. I mean, these are just simple things that, you can tell someone. I always tell people it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
And it's so funny because in the beautiful no,
Mhm.
part of it is acknowledging, man, that deserves a certain level of commitment. Like I don't want to dishonor it
Right.
and give it and not give it the attention it truly deserves. I
Mm.
really like what you're doing, and it deserves a certain level of attention, and it's clear to me I don't have that level of attention at this time.
Right.
So, but I would never dishonor it with a questionable
Mhm.
commitment. So let's get you the level of commitment that you need. Not and again, and when you say that no, don't then insert yourself back into it by saying something silly like, well, let's get you that. It's no, 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 no. I can't do it. Period. And
Mhm.
that's a full stop.
Mhm.
You don't
Right.
then have to say, well, let me help you find a person who can, or let me like, and
Right.
little by little, you find all that freedom you just had carved out for yourself, you just gave back.
You just gave
Oh,
back, and doing that, also not allowing yourself to feel guilty. Because that follow-up, what you were just about to say, like, "Oh, let me find you a replacement. Let me find somebody else." Like, that's almost like them feeling guilty, like you're feeling guilty, so you're taking on the responsibility. And so they'll be like, "Okay, I said no, but they're gonna see how amazing I am helping to find them someone else." It's just like practice just doing
stop.
the beautiful no,
Mhm.
stopping and
Yeah.
allowing, them to find somebody else, that kind of thing. Just wanting to remind everyone that your questions and comments are welcomed, and they help to, take us in deeper ways into this topic. So please, if you have a question or a comment, please put it in the chat. We would love to answer your questions. All
We
right, there goes one.
we have a comment from Tokara Dorsea. Let me know if I said that right, Tokara. And she said, I struggled with this so much when I first came out of my family Pentecostal faith into the SDA church. It was a struggle to set boundaries with my mother and other relatives. Yeah,
Mm,
so you can see how, you might have come out of the Pentecostalism, but you still want to remain relationship with the family. And
right.
so now you feel almost like one down. Hey, I have to cater and I have to do X, Y, or Z. At least this is what I'm thinking, Tokara. So you got to let me know if I'm thinking about it correctly. When in fact you still are entitled to set boundaries. So
Right.
very very interesting comment.
Yeah, I see another comment that she put in the chat. She said, um,
The tone in which
the
we say no.
tone in which we say no. Yeah, again, it's not what you say, but how you say it. And then people who really, really love and respect you, they will be able to accept the beautiful no. I mean,
Absolutely.
they still probably will want you to do it, but they'll have to be like, you know what, she couldn't. Because of that love and respect that they have for you, they will be okay. They will be okay.
I'm just back up for a second because
Okay.
I had mentioned Jesus prioritizing his devotional life, and here you have Jerry saying, "Look, according to Mark chapter 1 verse 35, and in the morning, rising up a great while before day, he went out and departed into a solitary place, and there prayed."
Right.
So you get your steps ordered. You get some clarity on what boundaries you're going to need to set,
Yeah.
so because you make the priority pleasing God, and you do a good job with that, and people ultimately will be very pleased. So no, thank you for that, Jerry.
Yeah, and that was Jesus's self-care. That was his
Absolutely.
self-care.
Absolutely.
That was him taking care of himself first so that he could be Jesus all day and be
All right.
the amazing, God that he was.
All right,
And
here we
man
have us a question. Deborah Hailing. uh hey Deb, hope all is well. Knowing that some people hate you because you say no to them, what kind of effect it may have on you as an individual? Or does it have any at all if you really do not care? Does it any at all if you really do not care? Hey, do you think it's really possible to not care?
you're talking to me, so it is very it
It's
is
possible.
you are asking me it's very easy for me not to. Well, not to care in the sense like if because like you said, knowing that some people hate you because you say no to them, like like my mom used to always say, she'd say, "Baby, consider the source." So I'm saying like consider not just the source, but the fact that somebody's hating you or disliking you or they're so mad at you because you said no. I mean, are they really then they really weren't your friend, or they don't truly love or respect you. I mean, to to be that angry, to use the word hate, to that because you said no. And so in that situation, I would be saddened and grieved that the person um, is that upset. But then it's just like, you
But it,
can't, you
but it,
should not get so angry or upset with somebody because they said no. Like,
but it's kind of funny though, because especially if you know a person for a long time, at some point you're gonna have to say no. At some point.
right.
And
Hmm.
so are you telling me that it's almost like all the prior times that you said yes, you put yourself out, and now this time when you say no, like how genuine was the relationship in a
That's what
sense?
I mean.
You know, like how
Mhm.
genuine was it? And I gave you the illustration of Charles Barkley getting some advice from one of his colleagues' parents,
Mhm.
and the parents saying, "Look, don't set family and friends up, because the first time you say no, you
Mhm.
know, you're you're gonna see the fury come out." So Deborah, this is the reason that personal work is so important. It's so
Mhm.
important because when you're comfortable with yourself, when you're happy with yourself, when you value yourself, you
Mhm.
can honestly say, well, at the end of the day, how do I feel about myself in this situation?
Mhm.
And when it's healthy, I mean, that's phenomenal. Sister Tante says she doesn't care, right? She didn't say
That
she didn't say
sounds
she
so
didn't care.
nice.
She didn't say she doesn't care. But like one of the things I've heard in your story is you're
Mhm.
surrounded by people who cared. You are surrounded. You were poured into by a father who cared.
Mhm.
So you now weren't in a situation where you were looking for validation outside. It's like you always had your base.
Right. I mean, yes, I did. I did, and I think that did definitely shape who I am today. And going along with that is like I try, like if I can do something, and I mean if I can do something, and I will say yes, right? But if it's gonna put me in a situation where my health, mental health, marriage, or my relationship with my children, you know what I'm saying, if I've promised them something and it's a time situation that I need to be with them. And see, especially in ministry, I guess I see this through the lines of ministry, because when you're a minister's wife, or your family is in ministry with you, or your children, there's people all over the place trying to trample on that time and that space. So if you want a healthy family and marriage, you and children, you better learn to say no.
Well said,
You
man.
better learn to say no, because if
Well
you don't,
said.
so that's kind of where I'm coming from. And I know everybody's not quite in that situation, but that's my real life situation. Even if I'll tell you that all of our children are grown, but when people ask for like speaking engagements, it's right around their birthdays. Like, just not that they're grown, so they're not always going to be spending their birthdays with us anymore. But I still leave space that if they want to say, "Hey, mom and dad, let's do something," or "Do you guys want to come over?" And I always leave space not to book my husband during that time, or for us to be gone somewhere doing ministry or something like that, because it's one of the kids' birthdays and they may just want to spend it with us, like do a family thing or whatever. So, anyways, that's just an example.
Well, but it's and what a message it is to
Mhm.
your kids. You know what a message it is. You know that I value you. You're valuable, and it's not these constant.
Mhm.
You're not that important. You're not that important. Like this is what we communicate
Right.
when when we dismiss it and don't carve it out. Like
Right.
the picture that we want you to have is a vault. You know, a
Right.
vault. A vault, like if you think about Fort Knox, like Fort Knox is protected.
Yeah.
It's protected with space. The vault is really thick. They're literally helicopter gunships protecting Fort Knox. Why? Because what is inside of it is valuable.
Mhm.
So when things are valuable, there are boundaries around it. And
Mhm.
so if you value yourself, if you value your loved ones, if you value your relationships, you're going to put boundaries around it. And guess what? It's not like it completely locks it off. You're also
Right.
going to have a criteria for what you let in. You can get into the Fort Knox vault, but did you know no one person can get in at the same time?
Right.
It
Wow.
is that valuable that no
Mhm.
one person,
Oh, I like that.
it's
Yeah.
a code that requires two
Mhm.
people, you
Mhm.
know. So because why? Because what's in
Mhm.
that vault is really important. How important are you? You're priceless.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
how important should be your boundaries that still allow access,
Right.
but
Mhm.
also have boundaries?
Yes. Boundaries are so important, and they're so simple, such a simple concept, but they are trampled on all the time, every day, in so many relationships, and it causes so many problems. It can
Yeah.
cause so many problems.
Listen to Amra. Amra said, I recently cut the cord from a friendship that became very one sided and they couldn't respect boundaries. They
Mhm.
gaslighted me when I explained that I didn't have the capacity to meet their needs.
Mm.
You know, I'm sorry that that happened, Amra.
I'm
But it
sorry
sounds like,
too.
yeah, it sounds like you were creating space, you know.
Mhm.
And so sometimes that has to be done.
Yeah, it does. It does have to be done, and it doesn't mean, like, you can do exactly what Amber did, and you don't have to be hurtful and mean about it. You just lay a boundary and kind of step away, and that's okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's we are responsible to educate people on how to love us. And that's
Mm,
what our boundaries do.
I love that. That's a T-shirt. I like that. We are responsible to teach people how to love us.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
yes. That's so yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. Like we should teach we definitely should teach our your children that, right? And your young ladies, your girls, even your boys, of course. Teach them that so that they will be respected in relationships. Like you need, you know what I mean? Like that's everything.
That's your responsibility. And you can't teach a lesson you haven't learned yourself. So
Mm,
you've got to learn how to love yourself so you can teach others how to love you.
mhm, mhm. That's powerful. That
100%.
really is a t-shirt. That's really a t-shirt. I think Mastermind Institute needs to put that t-shirt out.
Coming right up. Coming right up. Coming right up.
Yes, yes, yes. So, there are, different things we went over using the I statements that you can do. You can also, seeking support, consider therapy or counseling to explore deeper issues related to people pleasing and to develop healthier coping strategies. She gives an example of joining support groups where you can share experiences and gain insights from others. Um, so, because as we talked about, that there's underlying issues that are there's a foundational issue that caused the people pleaser characteristics in every individual.
Correct.
And so when you do go into therapy, individual therapy, you and the therapist will explore those things that could have caused the people pleaser, again, characteristics and personality, and how to best to be able to deal with that and basically rewiring your thought process, and how you think about different things can always help have good, healthy thoughts about something versus distorted thoughts.
You know, it's so powerful that you're saying that because if you do not invest the time, the energy, and the resources to get that therapeutic experience to help you rewire your brain,
Yeah.
guess what you're going to do? You're going to perpetuate it. People pleasers raise people pleasing kids. It
Yes.
continues. It's
Yeah.
little innocent stuff like say hello to the nice man. Honey, say hello to the
Yeah,
next
yeah,
man. You know, it's like she
right,
doesn't want to. It's okay.
right.
You know, she doesn't.
Yeah,
You don't have to. Her spidey sense could be going off, and she's like, I'm, I don't know that I feel safe with this person. And instead,
mhm,
now they're being forced into, no, disregard how you feel. And no, no, it's to me, that's kind of people pleasing. I
right.
think we
No.
can we can teach our children not to be rude, sure,
Oh, yeah,
but
right.
when they don't want to do something, especially as it relates to relating with people, I
Mhm,
think we have to be so careful, so
mhm,
careful so that we don't infect them with people pleasing.
mhm.
We have us a question. How does a mom, wife, or dad or husband set boundaries in their household, especially if they are the stay-at-home parent? How does a mom, wife, or dad or husband set boundaries in their household, especially if they are the stay-at-home parent?
You can yeah, I mean, it's the same way that you set boundaries in any other situation. Even just because you're a stay-at-home parent, doesn't mean you can't set boundaries. I mean, you communicate with your spouse, especially if you're the stay-at-home parent and this, to say, yeah, it said mom, wife. So if your husband is the one out working and you're staying home, communicating with him, saying like, this is what I need, and this is where I'm going to put a boundary down. That because I'm home with the kids all day, that when you come home, I'm going to give you some time with them, and I'm going to go do some self care for myself. I mean, I'm just putting a scenario together that could be what you might want to say to him, but you're communicating that to him. That's not what you say; it's how you say it. So it's how you say it, and if you're in a relationship where there's love and respect, and he appreciates the fact that you're a stay-home mom and stay with the kids and take good care of the kids and raising them, there shouldn't be a problem with what you're laying where you're going to put a boundary down at. And the same with the kids. I don't know how old the kids are, but if they're a little bit older and they can understand where they're old enough to just stay with dad or to be able to do some things on their own if they're older, that mom is going to go doing this right now. It's because mom needs this, and then you're setting a boundary there too. What are
I
your thoughts
have I have this. I follow this person on Instagram.
about it?
It like the name of the account is literally like "Mom of Four Boys," something like this, and it's like her boundaries are just so beautiful. Like she's so systematic. She's like before I don't know the exact time. She's like before 7 a.m. I'm not mom. So like she's got their things that they're supposed to be doing. She's
Mhm.
got her exercise that she does and her
I
me
love
time.
it.
It's so dope. It's so
Yeah,
dope, right?
I love
Like
it.
she's
Before
got
7 a.m.
all her stuff. And then
Mhm.
also after about 8 p.m. or something like that. Again, I don't know the time. And I'm not recommending this because you got to make it right for your household. Your
Right,
kids
right,
might
right,
need
right.
you after 8, right? But like after 8, she's like, again, I'm now off the clock. And so you
Mm,
guys know this is your prescribed time to do X, Y, or Z. But as a stay at home, you almost need the boundaries even more because
right.
without the boundaries, you could be on 24/7
Mhm,
and no one should be on 24/7, so to speak. So I think it's always a matter of taking a look at what is my goal? What
mhm,
is the value I'm trying to preserve? How important is that value? And depending on how important that value is, you put boundaries around it. And remember,
mhm,
boundaries is not an unbroken wall. There's always a door, there's always a gate, but there's a
mm,
criteria for opening it.
mhm.
There's a
Right.
criteria. So that's what I would say. You're definitely entitled to set some boundaries, but
Yes,
it's in the system of what's important and then how do I set the criteria for when you can access it, so on and so forth.
yes. Let's see. We have Loved by God
Yeah,
219
yeah.
says, I've recently heard that people set boundaries based on them compromising in the past and not sticking to their no or yes. If we stick to, I'm saying, if we stick to her first mind, we won't need to set boundary thoughts.
Okay, well, what immediately comes up is, obviously, if you put some good thought into setting that boundary, then yeah, you want to stick to it. Not only do you want to set the boundaries, you want to set up the consequences for the boundary violation. And then
Right.
you actually want to follow through on that consequence.
Mhm.
Um, but I just want to caution that life is very transient and dynamic. Things
Mm.
change, in other
Right.
words, and you definitely want that your boundaries accommodate some of the dynamic nature of life. But that said, there is a degree to which you want to be consistent, because
Mm.
sometimes if you don't take time to think about, well, every boundary has gates or a door. What's the condition for
Mhm.
opening it or closing it? If you don't take time for that, that's when it's hard to honor the boundary. And you may
Right.
find you're letting people in or not letting people in inappropriately. So
Mhm.
it definitely want to be, your boundary should be thought through. And it does need to honor the dynamic nature of our lives. Our lives are ever changing, ever flexing. And so we want to accommodate for that. But yeah, when we stick to our boundaries, when we're clear on our boundaries, you then develop that reputation. My staff know I don't like when things fall on the floor. Don't throw my stuff on the floor. you know,
Right.
um, it's they, and it's like, and I'm very systematic. So I'm easy to interact with because I'm consistent with what it
Mhm.
is that I want. So they already know, okay, he wants it like this and like this and like this and like this. So I
Mhm.
think that's what that speaks to, loved by God, that when we're consistent, we then become predictable and people can sometimes adjust to you. And when you're inconsistent, it's hard for people to then interact and engage with you.
Right. Right. Yeah, no. Excellent answer to that. I wanna give another tool, that she suggests out of the book, The Disease to Please. She talks about gradual exposure. Start small by saying no in low stakes situations and gradually work your way to more challenging scenarios. I think that's excellent advice. Excellent advice. I know, like, um, I'm reading a book on, I think it was dealing with OCD, right? So, or phobias. And so they were talking about people that, there was somebody that was um, afraid of spiders. So, one way that they were treating this patient or client was having a spider in a jar that was closed, but it was way on the other side of the room. And then eventually, like, it got a little bit closer, but it was like, in baby steps. And then eventually the person was like, okay, being in a room with spiders. I don't know why we have to get used to being with spiders, but that was the example. And so this is the same principle. So exposure therapy to saying no on a little thing, not a big scenario. Like, yeah, I wouldn't. I'm giving that as homework actually for some people pleaser clients that they had to say no during the week to some small thing that they normally don't even think about and just say yes, but they're overextending themselves and it causes them problems, but they don't let the person know. So it's just always interesting to see how they did with that homework for the first time. But it was
So,
small things. It was not, not really something significant, but very small, just so they can get used to feeling okay and saying no and not allowing themselves to feel guilty. So,
well, there's a reason why that is so crucial,
mhm,
because Sister Tante, if for example I say, I don't, let's say I don't want you to touch me, right? So now, where should I set the boundary? Should I set the boundary at 5 feet or 10 feet or 1 feet, or 1 foot, I should say, or 1 foot? You can see the more serious you are about the boundary, you're going to set it further out.
right.
So that's why that boundary is so important, because if you start with the light things, now you get to see how committed is a person to honoring it.
Hmm.
And so now it's almost like you're putting it way out there, because when you're serious about a boundary, you do have to put it out so that even if they crossed it accidentally, they're still not crossing your real boundary, because you were just so clear. You didn't
Right.
bring it close to you. So that's
Right.
very interesting about setting boundaries.
Yes. Yes. All right, we have a question from Ashley. She says, if you set a boundary with your spouse and they constantly trample on the boundary, how do you avoid constant tension and conflict without yielding your boundaries? That's a great question, Ashley. Great question.
You go, Ashley. Ashley like just took it down. Like now we're in the deep level. Thank you, Ashley. Well, I mentioned that word before about teaching a lesson and educating. And an important part of teaching and educating is communicating.
Mhm.
So, especially when you're dealing with an intimate partner like a spouse, um, it's important, I believe, to have conversations that explain, hey, man, this is why this is the boundary. What And this is now where you're going to use good communication skills, because sometimes you do all that talking, right? You explain, because I could see Ashley right now forming. I already did that. I can already see her saying that. Well, let me take it deeper, Ashley. Let me take it deeper to kind of help out. Yeah, you may have talked about it before, but did you then ask the question, honey, what are you hearing me say?
Hmm.
I've
Mm,
talked about this boundary. I've explained where I'm coming from. What are you hearing me say? And
mhm,
it's in that process that you can check in, Ashley, and see, did it land? Did it resonate? Is he really understanding how he's impacting you when he violates that boundary? Does he even know he's violating it? Ashley's like, yes, yes, he definitely knows he's violating it. Does he understand the significance of it? Okay.
mhm.
Does he understand the significance? And so I think, honey, what are you hearing me say? Before the rage, before the fury, before throwing,
Right.
no, before all that, like while it's calm, while you guys are super close, this is something that's important to me. This is my boundary. This is the reason for it. What are you hearing me say? And then, honey, you continue to violate it. Why is that? And then, Ashley, this is what you could do for him. Well, here's what I'm hearing you say. Is that what you're saying? Because here's what I'm hearing you say. And I think that exchange of very close tracking to making sure that the message is being received is a big deal. There are reports that suggest that when we talk, the receiver is only getting about 30% of our message. Okay. Very small percentage. So that technique of tracking, what are
Mhm.
you hearing me say? Here's what I'm hearing you say. That's why it can be so crucial in enhancing communication.
Right.
What are your thoughts, Doc?
Well, everything you keep calling me
I
doctor, so
always want to call you Doc.
I don't know if this is like a
No, I call
Freudian
people
slip
doctor all
or
day.
God's trying to speak to me to go back to school. I don't think so right now.
What are your
Uh,
thoughts?
so no, but my thoughts on that are you're exactly right with that communication skill that you just taught our audience, and like that they need to just, come at them in that way, because you just have this small window of space that they're actually hearing you. I was just going to say that, sometimes there is just, I mean, when there's like, I feel like that works when the person's still doing it. I mean, there is love and respect there, and they're still doing it, and you could come in at that angle. And then there's sometimes where there's some other foundational issues that are going on, to where it doesn't matter how you say it. Um, if they're not respecting you, or understanding, like you said, like trying to understand like why that's so important to you, or you trying to find out like, what are you hearing me say, those type of things. That's really, really good. But if there's not that foundational love and respect, then there's some other issues going on, and that they're going to trample on boundaries, because not because of what you said or how you said it, but of something going on with them. There could be some stubbornness there, or some resentment on why they're not wanting to respect your
No,
boundaries.
no, no,
I'm not saying
100%.
that's your situation, Ashley.
Right,
That's just
right.
possible in situations.
I I was giving Ashley's spouse the benefit of the doubt. I was
Yes,
giving
and that's what yeah, and
yeah.
I'm definitely not saying that that's Ashley's
Yeah,
spouse.
look at
That's
what you
just
said.
definitely
Look
in
what
some people's situation.
Look what she said. She said, "Unfortunately, I've tried all those things." I knew she was forming those words while I was
I
speaking.
think, well,
Unfortunately, I've tried all those over the last 14 years. Nothing has helped. The same cycle he violates. I deeply process the entire interaction at times, just a complete failure on his part.
mm,
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that,
I agree
Ashley.
with that too.
Um, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I know what I would say if we were in session, but yeah, but unfortunately, I've tried all those things. Well, you know, this reminds me of of um of the Gottman, statement that it's a myth that we solve all of our grievances in marriage. Like we can have a very successful marriage and
Mhm,
have certain grievances that just aren't solved because they are just so non-germane
mhm,
to the real crux of our relating, you
mm,
know? Um, but Ashley, if this is one of those things that's important to you and you're like, no, I want to invest in actually getting this solved, then it's worth taking a look at getting some formal therapy,
mhm,
and getting some tools and some skills in this area, plus or minus your partner. Sometimes,
right.
you getting the counsel by yourself is something that can be helpful. Incidentally, I do want to make the plug: info at the Mastermind Institute, info at the Mastermind Institute. For those of you that would like some coaching uh,
Mhm,
from me, just email me: info at the Mastermind Institute,
mhm,
and we'll talk about, if we could work together. But
right.
but Ashley kind of who reminded me of that. Sometimes it's worth making that investment. You
Yeah,
know.
it definitely is, to take it to the next step. Because if you're saying for 14 years you've done all that was just shared, then it definitely needs to, go into that more, professional setting, with a mental health, provider, or even someone, like Dr. White's,
Internal
Mastermind
coaching.
Institute, and the coaching. So for
Yeah.
sure. Okay, we have another question.
She
Um,
said, "I hear you, doctor, and it sounds excellent, but not many people can do this. I think we need to learn how to truly communicate. How do we learn this?" And I would say one of the crucial, is practicing some of these skills before it hits the fan,
mhm,
because so often, like, we when things are going well, we actually kind of like don't practice good communication.
right.
And I think if we practice it, it will then be available during those moments where things really hit the fan. Like
Mhm.
your amygdala, your internal world is basically on fire and
Yeah.
exploding, and
Mhm.
the fight or flight mechanism is completely active.
Right.
Your IQ has shrunk by a good 10 to 15 points. You're saying
Mhm.
things you got no business saying. um that's when, if you haven't been practicing saying, "Hey man, look man, at the end of the day, what are you hearing me say?" um Even
Mhm.
saying it with the right tone, mind you, those things will not be available to you. So again, info at the Mastermind Institute, reach out and see if maybe we can work together.
Right. Yeah.
But
That
it's
would be,
coaching, it's not therapy. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah,
Go ahead.
yes, right. That would be great though. That would be great. And I was just, gonna say, that, learning communication skills is so very important. I mean, that's so much of what we teach, dealing with in couples therapy. But going back to Dr. Gottman, he talks about having a soft startup. So even when, I mean, it kind of reminded me of when you were saying that there's just this small percentage, like 30%, that they're actually can actually hold and listening to, when you're speaking to, your spouse, is that, like, if you use a soft startup, you actually can, the possibility of you getting what you're wanting out of this conversation or what you're trying to say is,
Increasing.
extremely possible, because a soft startup does not put their walls up. They're fully listening because they don't feel attacked. I mean, the walls go up because they feel attacked, versus a hard startup is just going to shut them down. immediately. So you're not even going to get that 30%. If you use a hard startup, you're going to get like nothing. They're not hearing anything you say. It's like, so, when you're coming in with a soft startup and, again, explaining, to your spouse, this is like going back to the single mom, like the husband, you talk to the husband and say, I'm at home with the kids all day and this is what I'm needing. And again, if there's a foundation of love and respect, it should not be a problem for your spouse to be able to respect your boundary. And you should bring it to them in a very loving and respectful way. As long as they don't think your boundary is to try to get back at them or hurt them, or, the human mind we have all these emotions and we go all over the place because of whatever past experiences. But as long as it's brought into a space in a respectful way, it should be okay. And if it's not, that's when you call a counselor. That's when you call a mental health professional, because maybe some couples counseling will help. It will help, actually, not possibly. It will help.
Ashley's like, I tried therapy too.
Did she say that?
No, I can
okay.
just see Ashley.
Okay. Like you just know all of what Ashley's gonna say. Okay.
I can just see Ashley as we speak. But no, I mean, can you imagine if you were having, I think what made me think that is, can you imagine if you were struggling with an issue for 14 years and not getting a professional to come take a look at it? So
yeah, that's a long time.
that's a long time. So I
do.
wouldn't be surprised if she didn't on some level.
Yeah.
But I think what Ashley is really bringing to the table is this is not easy stuff. It's not. Okay. This is not. And this is why we always qualify this. We're not your therapists. We're not your coaches.
No, we're
We are
not.
providing information that like it's at its best when it helps you avoid some of these problems. Our prayer is that you'll hear this kind of stuff and you'll say, you know what? Let me break the cycle and let me not raise a people pleaser. And so that's when it's at its best. But we recognize marriage and relationships is difficult, but it's so high yield. It's so high yield when you do the work. And what was a problem, now it brings you closer, because so often I remember for me it was waking my wife up at night, right? Waking my wife up at night. What can I say? I wake up really easily. So of course now you wake her up. But she really had to explain to me, I get a headache, I get this, it's really bad. And I was like, really? Oh, okay. Well, I'll have to stop that. And guess what? She had to say it more than once, but then I got it. And so now she'd be like, hey, why'd you let me oversleep? You think I'm going to wake you up? You think I'm going to wake you up? No, obviously, if she tells me that she really wants me to wake her up, I'll wake her up. But like my knee jerk is really and truly let her sleep, because I know how disruptive it is. But it took a while to hear her and understand and then change. So that's what I'll say. Now, this is what Ashley said. I wonder how much can really be solved with someone who doesn't have the Holy Spirit. When their fruits make it obvious they lack God's fruit, it seems vain. Oh my word, maybe I need an exorcist. So clearly, clearly, Ashley, this is something that's profoundly impacting you. And I get that. But you can see like that is deserving of some really significant intervention. I would definitely say that's really worth some profound intervention.
Yes.
All right.
That is our encouragement, Ashley, for sure.
Definitely.
For sure. And with that statement or question, I mean, we do have time for one more question if one pops up quickly. But I don't know. It looks like there's a lot of statements, but this is your last chance for questions. But it has been such a meaningful discussion these last 3 weeks with you guys, just talking about being a people pleaser, learning to set boundaries, what that looks like, and even, just what that looks like, what that can feel like, not allowing yourself to feel guilty saying no, learning how to say the beautiful no instead of the ugly yes. If it's to the point where, well, just understanding, I'm just recapping what we've talked about. Just again, understanding that people pleasingness comes from the fear of being rejected and that somebody not liking you because you're not, doing exactly what they want, and you're thinking like you're not worth enough to be able to say no and still be liked, but you are. You are worth enough. And so after you've gone through all that process and you're still struggling with that, then I think it would be great to find a mental health professional to talk to someone and just get to the bottom of that. But this has been a great discussion. The book is called The Disease to Please. The Disease to Please. And if you could, we've just been highlighting different areas in the book, but getting the book would also definitely be great for you. It's a very good read, and there's a lot of practical things in there that I believe can really, really help you in this journey. So
I,
again,
I
oh,
think
go
I
ahead.
think well I think it's really important that we dispel that myth that people pleasing is a good thing. People
Right,
pleasing is a Christian thing.
right,
No, we're saying people pleasing with the wrong motives is a
right.
sign of trauma. It's a
Trauma.
sign of a person who was victimized by trauma. And
That's right.
we want that to be clear. And so if anything, it leads you to get some work done to see, well, how do I heal this trauma?
Yes.
But
Yes.
but as a former colleague would say, check your motives. Check your motives.
Yes, check your motives. And again, the book is The Disease to Please by Dr. Harriet Brakier. And so you can find that on, you can find it on Audible if you want the audiobook, and where other places where you purchase your books from. And so we are so thankful that you decided to join us on a Monday evening. Always a blessing to have all of you here. And again, to do this program with you, Dr. Whyte. Just to let our audience know, we'll be taking a week off next week, but we will return with another series. And we will let you know that information pretty soon, what that series is going to be all about. So we're looking forward to doing more mental health, having more mental health discussions with all of you. And we just look forward to that. So please have a good evening, and we will see you in 2 weeks. All
Take
right.
care.
Yes.
All the best.
All right. Bye bye.